The Listen to Read American Adventure Library presents a family sailing adventure on a private yacht to the Galapagos Islands and the South Seas in 1929, collecting materials for the Natural History Museum and making history. To the South Seas, written by Gifford Pinchot, read by Stojka. Chapter 1. Dreams Do Come True.
Once upon a time, when all the world was young and the trees were green, two sophomores at Yale, and sophomore means a wise fool, decided that someday they'd sail away to the South Seas in a schooner of their own. Together they planned their trip to the Enchanted Islands, where all men and most women would dearly love to go, and they were deadly serious about it. One of these pilgrims of hope shortly became captain of the Yale crew and the most famous football man of his time. As right guard in the Yale line, George Woodruff used to plow down the field, burdened but not stopped by massive opposing players that hit every vestige of him but his feet. Since then, as Attorney General of Pennsylvania and a foremost authority on the law of conservation, he's kept on carrying other people on his broad back. The other pilgrim just barely won his Y as a substitute on the team. 40 years later, when the time to go actually came around, the great player and the great lawyer could not get away. The substitute saw his chance and went. And this is his story. For him, after 40 years, the lines that had barred the way all turned into purring tabby cats. The years of his governorship were over and past. The time of the singing of birds was due to come, and if the song of the Galapagos turtle was to be heard in the distant land, he wanted to hear it. The door to the seas and lands of every man's desire stood suddenly ajar. The open doorway led first to nearly every shipyard and yacht basin from Pennsylvania to Maine. I know little about ships and sailings, for it takes years at sea to make a sailor, but it was easy to see that there are yachts and yachts, and that not many of them are fit to keep at sea. Yacht builders, yacht brokers, and yacht owners here and there called attention to vessels that would certainly have taken us gaily out of the harbor, and with equal certainty would have brought us back again at the first sign of a storm. We wanted no fair-weather ship manned by the kind of crew that calls it hard luck to be out at sea all night. Like a Ford car, our ship must take us there and bring us back. First of all, she must be seaworthy, for I remember a friend of mine who once prepared to take a cruise in the southern waters. His schooner was a beauty. He sent her from New York to meet him at some southern port, and that was the last he ever saw of her. She was lost, with all hands rounding Hatteras. Our ship must be able. She must have reserve buoyancy in plenty. She must be fairly dry, and if possible more than fairly easy in a seaway. She must lie to safely in heavy weather, and must have a draft enough to give her a solid hold on the water. She should be reasonably fast under sail, but that was a secondary consideration. Speed must come after safety. She must have an engine, and fuel enough to run it for at least 3,000 miles. She must carry provisions for 4 months. She must carry fresh water in her tanks for 60 days, and an apparatus for distilling salt water into fresh, large enough to keep a whole ship's company in health if the water in her tanks leaked or went bad. Finally, she must be big enough to take the 3 Pinchots, Chiff's chum at school, a physician, and 3 scientific men and their equipment, in addition to the captain and the crew. But this was to be no mere yachting trip. It was not even to be merely an adventure trip, although it's been said that the highest duty of man is to undertake adventures. It was to be a scientific expedition, for adventure seasoned with science is the very best kind. Months went by before the ship was found. She was the Cutty-Sark, and before that the Ariadne, built in Wilmington in 1902, a 3-masted topsail schooner of 250 tons gross and 120 tons net, 148 feet overall, 110 feet waterline, and 16 feet draft. She was of steel construction, very heavily built, in perfect condition, and her ballast was 40 tons of lead poured into her keel. The engine room, with its brand-new 300 horsepower diesel and plenty
Sample complete. Ready to continue?